Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction, and also for dedicating me this time and inviting me here. So yes, my name is Massimo Candela. I work at the Global IP Network of NTT. Basically, it's one of the largest networks in the world. And together with my colleagues, what I do there is working on the automation and monitoring of the network. One of my tasks is actually to identify processes that could be automated and so overall reduce the operational overhead. And this presentation goes exactly in that direction. In particular, it is about reducing overhead when you have to correct or anyway adjust IP geolocation that you of your IP addresses. And I will describe this strategy, and I hope will also help you like it is helping us. This presentation is based on the draft that has been currently approved by the steering group at the IATF, so we are almost there. You will find more details there. My co-authors are Randy, Warren, and Russ. So what is the issue? So IP geolocation. First of all, what is IP geolocation? IP geolocation is you have an IP address. It is a process that, given an IP address, it provides you the location where the device connected with that IP address is. It is not about the company, where the company is or stuff like this. It is related to where that IP is connected. And this is extremely important information because a lot of things are based on it. For example, content distribution. If you have IPs that they are wrongly geolocated, customers will complain with you. Because they cannot, for example, access to the content in their region, or the access to content in other language, or things like this. Also, during troubleshooting, it is an extremely important information, or during research also. Now, what is the main problem? When you have IP geolocation that is wrong, there is no clear answer on how can I fix it. There is no defined path. So basically, there are various repositories. There is no central repository. There is no common strategy, no authoritative data. And you have various repositories. Some of these, they are provided by geolocation providers. Others, they are forks of these data sets, maintained directly by the content providers or by other players. So what you have is a heterogeneous scattered set of data sets, which they can get soon out of sync, maybe also stale. And when you want to fix that, well, the only thing you can do is to try to identify what is the source of the problem and contact various organizations. So the various organizations that they are contacted, this is a quick list. These are the most important geolocation providers. There are many more, some of which I don't even know yet. I discover always new. Plus, in this list, there is no content providers. There are no content providers. So you can see that the list is, I mean, sending emails, even if you do it twice per week, it can be pretty annoying. Also, sometimes people contact directly the RIR, like RIPE-NCC, but the RIRs, they don't do geolocation. They are not in charge of that type of information. They even have to put disclaimers about that because of the amount of requests. So basically, the current process is to contact companies directly and trying to fix it. Now, what we are proposing is essentially to automate this process. And how do we do it in 3 steps? So in these 3 steps, first step, you create a CSV file, which is essentially a text file. For each line of this CSV file, what we are suggesting to do is to provide a prefix, comma, country, comma, region, comma, city. So basically, prefix or IP, you can also provide directly an IP, comma, country, comma, region, comma, city. This format already exists. It is called Geofeed. It is described in the RFC 8805. And it is a great format. We will see why, but in particular, it is already used by all geolocation providers. For sure, the one in the list before, they also support it. And many content providers, they also do that. So we are basing this on a format that is already widely used. So now step number 2, you publish this file somewhere. You can publish on your website, you can put it on GitHub. It does not really matter where, as long as you serve it possibly over HTTPS. The final result of this step is to have a URL. Here you have 2 examples. This is ours at NTT, and this one is from T-Mobile. Now, what you do at the end of this step is that you have this URL, you made it reachable, this file, but nobody knows about this URL. So now that where step 3 comes into play. In step 3, you go in your RIR portal and you, for example, RIPE, if you are in this region, you go and you find the INNAM that covers the prefixes that you provided in your Geofeed file, and you add a remark. The remark has to contain the keyword Geofeed space URL. So what happened with this step? What you did here by creating this remark for the parent INNAM is that you made this file auto-discoverable. You made the process of discovering this file automatic, and also basically you also associated it with the WHOIS data, which are authoritative for the resource. So you basically created a link that is easy to verify for ownership. Also keep in mind that, and we will talk a bit more later, how does it work, this, that you can point multiple INNAMs to the same Geofeed file. That's actually what we are doing at NTT. So basically multiple files, multiple INNAMs, URL to the same file. You can worry only about that file. So the now an example of how you do that. This is an example of Geofeed file. As you can see, prefixes they can be complete from country to city, but they can also just say country, like Hong Kong, or they cannot say anything. It just do comma, 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 prefix, comma, which means don't geolocate, or we don't want to geolocate. That's what it means if you don't provide anything. The format is basically standard ISO codes, and I provide this slide so you can find links where there is the ISO browser to easily search across these codes. And for the city name, UTF-8 GNames. So this is for your convenience during your creation of this file. So if you are in the in RIPE-NTT, after you created the in this region, after you created the Geofeed file and you publish it, you go in the portal, and you can also find your INNAM, go in the remarks, and you can see that there is that Geofeed string that I said before, Geofeed URL. After you save, and you go into WHOIS, and you can see that in the WHOIS there is this remarks, the last one that says Geofeed blah 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 URL. You finish the entire procedure. That's done, easy. The next step, if you would like, is to test if everything went fine. You can go in this URL. There is an open source tool called Geofeed Finder. It runs on all the platform. In this case, I tested with, I'm doing the example with the macOS version. You can just do -t and prefix. What it will do is it will find the INNAM in the WHOIS, find the Geofeed file, fetch the Geofeed file, and do the longest prefix match on that file and provide you the geolocation. If what you get back in the last line is what you were expecting, then everything is fine. Now, why we based this on Geofeed? Because it is an extremely flexible format. In addition to the fact that already many companies use it, it is an extremely flexible format. You can geolocate a single IP or entire prefixes. You can, for example, create in the file a /16 geolocated to the Netherlands and a /24 geolocated to Amsterdam specifically. Inside the file, the longest prefix match will be used. Also, you can geolocate at whatever level you wish. We saw you can say nothing, or you can say country, or you can say up to city level. And additionally, you don't need to create INNAMs for each thing that you want to geolocate. You just need a parenting INNAM, a parent INNAM that goes to the file. And inside the file, you can have the granularity that you wish. So you can basically, this is an important part because in many organizations, who is in charge of the who has the access to the RIA portal is not the person that maybe is aware of the geolocation. So usually what happens is that you have to ask, can you do this? Can you do this other thing? So in this approach, you just do it once, you link the file, and from that moment on, you can work on that file by itself. So in a it is extremely important to clarify what we are trying to achieve here. What we are trying to achieve is to support operators and geolocation providers, both of them. We are not trying to replace geolocation providers. We are not trying to create a complete repository in Geofeed or anything like that. Geolocation providers, they have an important role in validating the data, to validating in the sense like if they make any sense, if they have ways to test if the geolocation that you provide makes sense or not, and that you are not lying. Also, they have an important role in distributing such data in an effective and performant way. We are just trying to ease the communication with them. So basically, by trying to remove this emailing that it goes on every time, but just make it automatic. Also, we are trying to define, and this is important because the draft is about two parts: one, how to produce; one, how to consume this file easily and safely. We are trying to define a way to consume this data. So what happens at the moment is that there are a lot of original ways to validate the ownership of the resources, among which apparently one of the most used is if you have an email that belongs to that company, then you can basically geolocate whatever in that company, which some are clearly not a safe approach. So by linking this from the WHOIS data, from the INNAM, basically we are providing an easy to verify way of resource ownership. This is based on the fact that when you reach an INNAM and you go in the Geofeed file, in the Geofeed file, you must discard whatever else is outside of the parent INNAM. So the idea is that if you can change the INNAM and put the remark URL, then you basically you are authoritative enough for geolocating those resources. In case of weak RPSL authentication, there is an optional authenticator. This is optional. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. That can be appended, which is a digest of the main body, signed with the key of the relevant RPKI certificate for that prefix. So in the RIPE database in particular, there is an effort currently going on. Actually, yesterday we had a call with the legal department where we are trying to basically add a specific attribute that is called Geofeed in the RIPE database. This would allow us to don't exploit remarks for doing this. And of course, if Geofeed attribute will be implemented, there will be just a unique reference to a Geofeed file. And also in that case, AMS must have at most one reference, which can be or remarks or Geofeed. And at the moment, there is no plan for other areas. They didn't yet started the process, but we will see how it goes with the RIPE NCC. Now, on the consuming side, I already gave some information before, but there is this open source PSD3 application. So if you are a content provider and you are also doing IP geolocation, so you have your data set, or if you are a geolocation provider, you can use this application. It is not really important what application you use. It is important to basically understand how this works. So to basically clarify that it's extremely easy. So we suggest to use Whois dumps. They are already available for all RIRs, and Whois dumps are already used by many companies already and by many geolocation providers. So it is a familiar data set. That is great. We don't want to introduce anything new and anything breaking processes currently available. So you take the Whois dumps, and basically you find all the AMS having Geofeed references, and the application, what it actually does is does the process that I told you before about following the URL of the Geofeed file and essentially validating the ownership based on the AMS, and creates a single big Geofeed file, which is the result of, let's say, the merge of all the other Geofeed files. So since geolocation providers are already supporting, and also content providers are already supporting the Geofeed format, for them, the only thing that they need to do is to actually run this application in a cron job and maybe daily or whenever they want, import this Geofeed file, this big Geofeed file, like if it was a single user Geofeed file. So basically nothing that is going to introduce overhead on who is consuming this file. Also, I said this application runs on basically on all platforms, but you can just go ahead and create yours. If you are dealing with geolocation providers that does not automatically does this periodic import, you can ask to support it, and basically you will benefit from it and everybody else. So at the moment we have in coming from Whois around 1,500 entries. Geofeed entries. We are growing with around 100 per month in the last couple of months, which is not bad. And there are 3 major geolocation providers that they already do this daily periodic pooling of the geofeeds. More are experimenting with it. Some implemented only for IPv6, and they are experimenting to see how it goes. And for us, it is already reducing a lot the overhead. And I think it's in the end a way to define a process for it. So my presentation is over. This is my email. If you have questions or if you need any help on why you are deploying this, and also there is my Twitter account. And if you have questions, I think this is the moment. I think we have some minutes left. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Massimo, for this presentation. Yes, of course, you can pose your questions, and I can see them on the tablet. In your last slide, you mentioned that geolocation providers are already adopting your proposal. Can you perhaps put a number to it? How many are already working with it? So,
okay, so 3 main geolocation providers, they publicly release the information that they already daily fetch this information. So just to clarify, there is already cache in place, and there is also HTTP header system that helps for deciding when to fetch and things like this. But anyway, so geolocation provider, they define their own policy to import it. 3 already did it. Others, they didn't officially release that information yet. We believe that we are following our geolocation, how it distributes, and we believe that many already are indeed doing it, but they didn't release it yet publicly. But I think the key point is the fact that basically they already support the format, the Geofeed file. That is already a great thing, because for them is just like importing another file that you could have sent by email, while instead they can find it by itself, which I think we will both benefit from it. And I see this growing in the next months, let's say.
Yeah, okay, but because this won't replace current Geofeed methods, but it's more to correct them if they got it wrong. So just enlighten us, how are they doing it now without your Geofeed system?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So at the moment, the most common approach is to actually send an email. You send an email and you basically try to identify which are the various providers. You send an email to each of them, and they validate if what you are saying is correct, exactly like they would do with a Geofeed, and after they update their internal data set. Most of this data, this is how you correct it. How most of these data are derived at the moment is magic system that each geolocation provider has. Some of these data are clearly coming already from WHOIS, but they are mostly related to where the company that owns the resource is, which is extremely different from where the IP is deployed. Others are coming from a commerce log. This was said already in various other occasions. A commerce log, like you buy something, you ship it to your home, and they link your home with the IP address. This is another way that they are used. And a lot of correction also coming from crowdsourced. There is going on various geolocation providers. They are doing active measurements also to define this geolocation, which means that they use latency to estimate. And this is also one of the approach that possibly they will be used. They will keep using to validate the Geofeed. So basically, the Geofeed part is coming only in correcting and suggesting geolocation when this is wrong. Maybe the geolocation that they have is partially correct. Maybe it's the same country, but different city, and you want to just provide this. Or maybe it's just stale, and you want to use the Geofeed to say, hey, we moved this IP. That's the current
Okay,
system.
thank you. We have another interesting question. Can you tell something about the naming convention? Are the locations mentioned in the local language? I can imagine with Chinese or Korean that will be difficult, but are the local names, or is there some sort of international standard system?
So there is actually that is actually a great question. So at the moment, the RFC 8805 prescribed to use the ATF8 name, and it suggests to use basically the local one that you can find also in the list provided by the GeoNames system. Yeah, that is at the moment what it is currently suggested. So in one of the slides, I provide a URL that brings you to the dataset that you can use to search for those names.
To make it slightly more difficult, sometimes places change names. For example, here in the Netherlands, we have municipalities who fuse or separate, and then they think of a new name. So is there sort of backwards compatibility, a way to change it, or you need to stick to the old code?
Well, that is, okay, so there are 3 levels of information. One is the country code, that it's ISO, that rarely
might also
changes.
Change if a country separates, like Czechoslovakia or something.
Yeah, that of course requires that you go and in that case you change. So basically, whatever the ISO standard says, we are not trying to invent anything. So whatever the ISO standard adopts, you go and you follow. So for the country, the region, basically those are defined standard. For the city name, unfortunately, there is no real ISO there, but there is a well-adopted data set that is called GeoNames. Yeah. Anyway, the most of the, let's say that the most important part of the IP geolocation is possibly at the country name, because that is where most of the, for example, a copyright law happen. So already providing the correct country, I think it's already helping a lot of operators in making those IP addresses, making the customer using those IP addresses able to access their resources.
Yes. Okay. That's for now for the questions. Thank you for being with us, Massimo Candela.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.